Erwin Smith killed more people than any other character in Attack on Titan. And he did it with a smile. Not Eren, not Reiner, not the Titans themselves. Erwin Smith, the brilliant strategist, the inspiring commander, the man they called the Devil, has the highest body count of them all. That's not my nickname for him. That's what Flock called him. We need a devil, Flock said, trying to bring Erwin back from death. Not a hero, not a savior. A devil. Because that's what it takes to win in this world. Because every plan he made, every victory he achieved, required sacrifice. Human sacrifice. And he knew it. He calculated it. He accepted it. But here's the question that breaks your brain. Why would the smartest strategist in the series make the dumbest move? Why would Erwin Smith, at the moment when his lifelong dream was finally within reach, choose to lead 200 soldiers on a meaningless suicide charge straight into certain death? By the end of this video, you'll understand why this wasn't a mistake. It was the only path to freedom he had left. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Erwin Smith was a tactical genius. The female Titan arc, Erwin's plan. The uprising, Erwin's strategy. Shingeki, Erwin's masterpiece. He played the long game better than anyone. He understood game theory, sacrificed the pawns to protect the king, and he did, over and over again. Hundreds of Survey Corps soldiers rode to their deaths following his orders. And every single time, Erwin saluted them and sent them into hell because he believed it was necessary. Because he believed that if they could just reach the basement, if they could just prove his father's theory, then all those deaths would have meaning. But here's what makes Erwin different. He knew he was building his own prison. This is where we need to talk about the sunk cost fallacy. It's when you continue investing in something, time, money, effort, lives, not because it's the right choice, but because you've already invested so much that walking away feels like admitting it was all for nothing. Erwin's entire life was a sunk cost. Every soldier who died under his command, every plan that required sacrifice, every victory built on corpses, they all became investments in his father's dream. And the more people died, the harder it became to stop. Because if Erwin walked away, if he gave up on reaching the basement, then what did all those soldiers die for? Nothing. That's the cage. Every sacrifice Erwin made locked him deeper into his mission. He couldn't stop, not because he was noble, but because stopping would mean facing the truth that he'd built a mountain of corpses chasing a ghost. And that ghost, his father. Let's go back to the beginning. Young Erwin, innocent and curious, asks his father a simple question. How do they know there are no humans outside the walls if no one's ever been out there? It's a child's logic. Pure, honest, dangerous. Because his father, a school teacher, starts sharing this theory with others. The government finds out. They kill him. Not publicly, not dramatically. They just make him disappear. And young Erwin understands, with horrifying clarity, that his curiosity killed his father. That's not a metaphor. That's not an exaggeration. Erwin's innocent question led directly to his father's execution. So what does a child do with that guilt? He transforms it into a mission. If I can prove my father was right, then his death wasn't meaningless. If I can reach the basement, if I can show the world the truth, then I didn't kill him. I saved him. Retroactively. Through vindication. Curiosity? No. That was the mask. Underneath, it was hunger. Not a hunger for truth, but for absolution. Reaching the basement wasn't a goal, it was the only way to wash the blood off his hands. He didn't want to go there. He was condemned to go there. Because here's the thing about guilt disguised as curiosity. It's insatiable. Every step toward the basement was another attempt at redemption. Every sacrifice was another prayer for forgiveness. But you can't wash blood with more blood. You can't redeem murder with more murder. Erwin knew this, and he kept going anyway. Kenny Ackerman understood this better than anyone. In his final moments, bleeding out, he asks Levi, everyone had to be drunk on something to keep pushing on. Everyone was a slave to something. What was it for you? Erwin's answer, guilt. Guilt disguised as curiosity. Guilt disguised as duty. Guilt disguised as the dream of a better world. But it was always guilt. And guilt is a cage you build yourself, one brick at a time, until you can't see the sky anymore. Erwin Smith wasn't chasing truth. He was running from the ghost of his father. And every soldier who died under his command became another brick in that cage. Now let's talk about the moment everything changes. Shingeki. The Beast Titan has them pinned. Levi can't get close. Eren is captured. The mission is failing. Erwin has two options. Option A, lead the suicide charge. Levi flanks and kills Zeke. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. 200 soldiers die for certain. Option B, someone else leads the charge. Erwin survives. Erwin goes to the basement. Erwin achieves his dream. Think about the tragedy of distance. He wasn't miles away, he wasn't days away, he was 500 meters away. A 10-minute horse ride. That's it. The answer to the mystery that defined his entire life was literally down the street. And he turned his horse the other way. From a strategic standpoint, option B is objectively better for humanity. Erwin is the best commander they have. His tactical mind is irreplaceable. Any rational analysis says save Erwin. But Erwin chooses option A. He chooses the suicide charge. He chooses death. Why? Because for the first time in his entire life, Erwin makes a choice that isn't determined by his past. Every decision Erwin has ever made was shaped by his father's death. Every strategy, every sacrifice, every victory, all of it in service of proving his father right. Erwin's entire existence was a reaction to childhood trauma. He wasn't free. He was a puppet dancing on strings made of guilt. But the suicide charge? That's different. That choice has no strategic value. It's not about the basement. It's not about vindicating his father. It's not about giving meaning to the dead. It's just a choice. A free choice. The first undetermined decision Erwin Smith has ever made. And then there's Levi. Levi, who has followed Erwin for years. Levi, who has watched Erwin sacrifice countless soldiers. Levi, who knows exactly what Erwin is. In that moment on the rooftop, Levi gives Erwin permission. Give up on your dream and die. Lead the recruits straight into hell. I'll take down the Beast Titan. It's not a command. It's liberation. Levi is telling Erwin, you don't have to carry this anymore. You don't have to reach the basement. You don't have to prove anything. You can just let go. And Erwin smiles. But not the same smile. Remember Season 2? When his arm gets ripped off by the Titan? He smiles then too. That smile was madness. That smile was vindication. I was right, that smile said. There are Titans in the walls. My father was right. I'm not a murderer. That was the smile of a man proving a point with his own severed limb. But this smile? The one he gives Levi on that rooftop? This is different. This isn't madness. This is peace. This isn't vindication. This is goodbye. For one single moment, Erwin Smith is free. Someone has given him permission to stop running, to stop chasing, to stop being the devil humanity needs. Let's bring in some philosophy here, but keep it simple. Jean-Paul Sartre said we are condemned to be free. We're always making choices, even when we pretend we're not. Albert Camus said life has no inherent meaning. We create meaning ourselves. Here's how this applies to Erwin. He spent his entire life creating meaning from his father's death. He built a whole narrative. If I reached the basement, then my father's death meant something. Then all the soldiers I killed meant something. Then I'm not a monster. That's meaning creation. That's the cage. But the suicide charge? That's Erwin throwing meaning in the trash. He's not trying to make it mean something. He's not trying to justify it. He's just acting. Pure action. No narrative, no redemption arc. No meaning, just a choice. And in that meaningless choice, he finds freedom. Because meaning was the prison all along. Here's the contrast that makes this so powerful. Eren Yeager was enslaved by his own nature. He saw the future, knew what he would do, and did it anyway because he couldn't imagine being anyone else. Reiner Braun was enslaved by guilt. He couldn't stop fighting because if he did, then Marco died for nothing. Berthold died for nothing. All of it was for nothing. But Erwin? Erwin breaks free by accepting meaninglessness. He gives up the dream. He abandons the mission. He lets go of his father's ghost. And in doing so, he becomes the only character in Attack on Titan who truly chooses his own death. Not because fate demanded it, not because guilt compelled it, but because he wanted to. The smartest strategist in Attack on Titan made the dumbest move, and that's what made him free. But here's the twist. Erwin found freedom and died. But that suicide charge didn't end with him. Flock survived. Flock, the one recruit who lived through that hell, became a fanatic. He became a Jaegerist. He became the kind of person who worships devils. Erwin's freedom became the world's catastrophe. Because when you sacrifice 200 people for a distraction, one of them might survive. And that survivor might spend the rest of his life trying to resurrect the devil who sent him to die. Erwin escaped his cage, but he left the door open, and Flock walked through it. So here's your strategic homework. Erwin Smith smiled because he finally put down the luggage he'd been carrying for 20 years. My question to you is, what is your basement? What dream are you chasing that's actually a cage? Erwin's lesson isn't about giving up on your goals. It's about recognizing when your goals have become your prison. It's about understanding the difference between pursuing something because you want it and pursuing something because you've already sacrificed too much to stop. The sunk cost fallacy doesn't just apply to money or time. It applies to identity, to purpose, to meaning itself. Sometimes the most strategic move is to walk away, to accept that everything you've done might have been for nothing, and choose freedom anyway. Erwin Smith gave up his dream and found freedom. The question is, are you brave enough to do the same? Let me know in the comments. And for more strategies that break the human mind, subscribe to Titan's Truth.